Billionaire sees black girl being expelled and humiliated by her stepfather after her mother's funeral. If you love stories like this, I invite you to subscribe to our channel and leave a comment about which city you're watching this video from. Let's continue the story. Get away from me, you black woman. I never want to see you again. The words cut through the cold air like a knife, louder than the whispering wind or the falling rain. People turned their heads, startled, and then quickly turned away. After all, it was a cemetery. No one wanted to be part of a scene. Not during a funeral. Anna collapsed beside the freshly dug grave, sobbing uncontrollably. Her small body trembled as she pressed her face into the cold, damp earth. "Mommy!" she cried, her voice hoarse and cracked. "Please don't leave me. Please wake up." Her pink dress was soaked, clinging to her trembling limbs, and mud smeared her knees. The teddy bear she held was soaked. Missing an eye, the neck stitch already coming apart. She didn't care. She didn't feel the cold. The pain inside her was much worse, but the man standing behind her, her stepfather, showed no emotion. He didn't flinch. He didn't comfort her, just held her. "I told your mother this would happen," he muttered to no one in particular. "Now it's just me, and this whole house, mine, you disgusting thing." Marcus Williams had just arrived. Stepping out of his black car at the edge of the cemetery, umbrella in hand. He wasn't near the woman being buried, but she had cared for his dying daughter, Sarah, 4 years earlier. That mattered. Enough for him to come, silently, stand at the back, and silently thank her. But now, his feet froze as he took in the scene. A little black girl sobbing uncontrollably beside a fresh grave, and a white man in his early 40s, with an elegant suit and cold eyes, hovering over her with impatience and disgust. "Get up!" the man snapped. "I've packed your things, what little you had." "Don't make this harder than necessary." Anna looked up, tears and rain mixing on her cheeks. "Where will I go?" she asked through her screams. The man pulled a crumpled shopping bag from behind him and threw it at her feet. Inside were a few shirts, socks, and a pair of tattered shoes. Nothing more. "Find out," he said. "Maybe the state will put you somewhere." "Are you going to kick her out?" Marcus's voice cut through the air like thunder. The man turned, clearly taken aback. "Excuse me?" Marcus stepped forward, his gaze hard beneath the umbrella brim. "You're going to kick a 6-year-old out of the house today, after her mother's funeral? She's not mine," the man said, shrugging. "No legal ties, no blood ties, and that house, it's in my name now. She has no right to this. Her mother just died." "Yeah, and I didn't ask for this. I married the woman, not the child. Now I'm free." Anna reached for the shopping bag, trying to gather the wet clothes with trembling hands. Marcus's stomach churned. He took a deep breath and bent down to Anna's level. "What's your name, dear?" She looked at him, her eyes red and puffy. "Anna, are you hungry?" he asked gently. She nodded. "Cold?" She nodded again, this time more slowly. "And I have a warm car and a full pantry," Marcus said. "Would you like to come with me?" If this moment touched your heart, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who believes in second chances. More powerful stories are to come. Anna looked at the grave and then at the man still standing with his arms crossed. "You don't belong here," the man barked again. "You're just extra baggage. Your mother didn't even leave a will." Marcus stood up, towering over him. "What's your name?" the man said, puffing out his chest. "Well, Mr. Pierce," Marcus said, stepping closer. "You may have inherited the house, but I doubt the court will appreciate the way you're disposing of this childish trash. Are you threatening me?" "No," Marcus said calmly. "I'm telling you to leave while you still have any dignity left." Darnell scoffed. "Whatever, she's yours now." And just like that, he turned, walked to his car, and drove away. Anna stood frozen, trembling beside the grave. The shopping bag slipped from her hand. Marcus bent down again. "Come on, let's get you out of this rain." She hesitated, then threw herself into his arms. Inside the car, the heater was already on. Marcus wrapped his coat around her small body as she snuggled into the seat, silent again. She held the bear to her chest as if it were the last piece of her mother. "Do you want me to say something?" Marcus asked softly. "To your mother?" Anna's lips trembled. She made heart-shaped pancakes. Marcus nodded. "Sounds like something worth remembering." They drove in silence, the Chicago city lights flickering on the wet windshield. Marcus's North Shore estate was 15 minutes away, but it felt like an eternity. At the front door, Ruth opened it with her usual speed, but stopped when she saw the girl in Marcus's arms. "Lord, have mercy," she whispered. "What happened?" "She lost her mother today," Marcus said, "and someone had to make sure she didn't lose everything else." He carried Anna upstairs himself, gently, as if she were made of glass. As he laid her on the guest bed, she finally spoke again. "Is it okay if I sleep with my bear?" Marcus asked. "He's part of the family now." She hugged the bear tighter, her eyes already closed. Outside, the storm began to pass, but inside Marcus Williams, something else was just beginning. Morning light slowly filtered through the heavy curtains of the guest room. Golden rays of sunlight warmed the edges of the comforter, reflecting off the folds of a navy sweatshirt that hung awkwardly on Anna's thin shoulders. The teddy bear, now dry but still missing an eye, lay nestled under her chin. Marcus Williams stood silently in the doorway, his coffee untouched in his hand. He had been there for several minutes, simply watching the girl sleep. It wasn't something he planned to do. Still, he couldn't look away. There was something haunting about her stillness. Children didn't normally sleep like this, not in a stranger's house, not after burying their mother, not after being thrown away like a broken toy. But Anna slept without fear, as if her little body had finally collapsed from exhaustion. As if, at least for one night, she believed she could be safe. A soft knock behind him broke the silence. "Are you going to stay there all day, or should I bring her breakfast?" Ruth asked, her voice low but firm. Marcus turned, startled. "She's still passed out." Ruth looked past him. "Poor thing. She probably hasn't slept in days." "She cried herself to sleep," Marcus said softly. Then, nothing. Just silence. Ruth crossed her arms, leaning against the hallway wall. "What now? Do you plan to keep her here?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. He took a sip of lukewarm coffee and looked at Ruth with tired eyes. "I don't know. She's not a mutt, Marcus." "I know. And this house isn't a halfway house for broken people you feel guilty about." I said, "I know." His voice came out harsher than he intended. Ruth raised an eyebrow, but didn't press the point. She'd worked for Marcus for 15 years. Long enough to recognize when he was fighting an inner battle she didn't yet understand. She calmed down. "Okay, I'll make her some apple cinnamon oatmeal. The kids still like that, don't they?" "Thanks, Ruth." As she disappeared downstairs, Marcus entered the room. He placed the coffee on the side table and slowly opened the curtains. The room brightened, and Anna stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, blinking against the light. "Hey," Marcus said kindly. "Good morning?" Anna said nothing. She sat up slowly, still holding the bear. "How did you sleep?" She looked around the room at the pale blue walls, the bookshelf with leather-bound books she couldn't read, the window overlooking the snow-covered garden. Then, finally, she looked at him. "I didn't dream," she said softly. Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. "That's good, I guess." Anna nodded. "I thought you were hungry. Ruth's making oatmeal. Is she the other girl?" "Yeah," he smiled. "She's tough, but she makes the best cornbread this side of the Mississippi." Anna didn't laugh. But she didn't cry either. It felt like a victory. He offered her his hand. "Want to come down?" She slid out of bed without answering, the sleeves of her sweatshirt dragging between her fingers. She followed him silently down the hallway, down the stairs, and into the sunny kitchen, where the smell of cinnamon and warm butter filled the air. Ruth was already setting a bowl on the table. "Good morning, young lady," she said without turning around. "I made you something sweet. I hope you have room for more." Anna sat in the chair and examined the bowl carefully. Ruth handed her a spoon. "Go ahead. He doesn't bite." After a few cautious bites, Anna looked up. "Okay," she murmured. Ruth blinked. "Of course." Marcus watched from across the table, his toast untouched. He couldn't stop thinking about the night before. How Darnell had thrown his clothes into a bag like trash. How Anna had cried at her mother's grave. She said her mother made heart-shaped pancakes, he said suddenly. Ruth looked up from the sink. "You look like the kind of woman who deserved a better ending." She left no will, nothing for Anna, no guardianship plan, just gone. "And that man," Ruth asked, "he claims the house is now his, legally or not. He's acting as if it is. And he's made it very clear that he wants nothing to do with her." "Well, that doesn't make him right," Ruth retorted. "It does make him dangerous." Marcus looked at Anna, who had finished her bowl and was now absently petting the bear. "Do you want to go back to that house?" he asked directly. She froze. Then, very quietly, she said, "He locked me in the laundry room once. Because I spilled juice." Ruth dropped the plate she was holding. It landed in the sink, untouched, but with a loud crash. Marcus slowly stood up. "Anna, has he ever hurt you?" She didn't say anything, but she shook her head, and then she whispered, "Not when Mom was there." Ruth stepped forward and placed her hand gently on Anna's shoulder. "You don't have to come back, darling. Not now. Never. I have nowhere to go." Marcus exhaled sharply, hands on his hips. "That's no longer true." Anna looked at him. "You're staying here," he said firmly, "at least for now. Until we sort things out. And no one will lock you in the laundry room again." She didn't smile, but her eyes lost a fraction of their weight. A tiny, almost invisible change. A little less fear, a little more light. Ruth turned back to the stove. "Well, I'd better start making more of everything. We have to grow." Marcus left the kitchen and entered his office, closing the door behind him. He picked up the phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "Lawrence Blackwell," said a familiar voice on the other end. "Larry," said Marcus. "It's Marcus Williams." A pause. "Wow, damn. I didn't expect to hear from you again. Are you finally ready to sell that software patent?" "No," said Marcus. "I need a custody attorney." Another pause. "Whose child is it?" "It doesn't matter. She has no one. And the man who kicked her out wants to take the house where her mother died. I want this reversed. I want her safe." Lawrence's voice deepened. "You know this won't be clean." "I'm not asking for cleanliness. I'm asking for speed." Lawrence sighed. "I'm going to ask you a favor. But, Marcus, be prepared. This may reveal more than you think." Marcus looked out the window. Snow was beginning to fall, slowly, gently, covering the ugly parts of the world in silence. "I'm already there," he said. "Do whatever it takes." And he hung up. The snow thickened as the day wore on, covering Marcus Williams' property in a blanket of white. The towering oaks in the front yard stood like sentinels beneath the weight of winter. Inside the house, the fire crackled steadily in the living room, casting warm shadows across the floor. But Marcus couldn't feel the heat. He sat alone in his office. A notebook lay before him, untouched. The words he intended to write, plans, questions, steps, remained trapped in his mind, bound by the force of memory. At the end of the hallway, he could hear Anna's quiet footsteps, the gentle rhythm of a child not yet accustomed to walking freely. Every now and then, she would stop, as if waiting for permission to move again. "She's very quiet," Marcus murmured. Ruth, standing in the doorway, crossed her arms. "She's surviving, Marcus." This silence is armor. He turned to face her. "I keep thinking, what if I hadn't shown up yesterday? What if she was still out there?" "You showed up," Ruth said gently, "and she's here now. That counts for something." But Marcus wasn't satisfied with something. He needed to know what to do next. "Lawrence is collecting property records and background checks on his stepfather," he said. "If there's fraud in the house transfer, we can challenge it." Ruth raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure about all this?" "No," he admitted. "No way, maybe." There was a long pause. "Then maybe it's time you talked to her," she said. Not just feeding her, not just sheltering her, but talking to her. That night, after dinner, Marcus found Anna curled up on the library sofa, slowly leafing through an old picture book. She didn't look up when he entered. The fire was low, and she seemed absorbed in the flickering pages. "Want to see something?" Marcus asked. She looked at him, wary but curious. He held out a small silver frame. Inside was a picture of a little girl with big blue eyes and a smile too wide for her face. She was missing a front tooth and holding a small dog in her lap. "This is Sarah," he said softly. "My daughter." Anna stared at the photo for a long time. "She's pretty. She's loud," Marcus said with a weak smile. "She liked to sing in the bathtub and used to name all her stuffed animals after the president." Anna's lips twitched. Just barely. "What happened to her?" she asked. Marcus sat up slowly. "She got sick. Cancer. The last 6 months have been the hardest. But your mother..." He paused. "Her mother made those months a little better. She used to tell Sarah stories and bring her pink lemonade, even when the doctors told her not to." Anna nodded. "She also made me pink lemonade, with strawberries." There was silence between them, deep and strangely warm. "Sometimes I think I should have saved her," Marcus whispered, more for himself than for Anna. "But I couldn't." "Oh, you're saving me," Anna said softly. He looked at her, stunned. "You didn't have to, but you did." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. There was nothing he could say to that. Not yet. Later that night, Marcus returned to the upstairs hallway and found Ruth folding laundry at the edge of the guest room bed. "She talked to you?" he asked. "More than I expected," he replied. "She remembers the little things. Lemonade, songs, stuffed animals. Children remember what matters," Ruth said. "Even when we think they're not paying attention." Marcus hesitates. "I keep thinking about Sarah, but it's not the same." "Anna isn't her." "No, she isn't," Ruth said softly. "Don't make that mistake. I'm not trying to replace anyone. I didn't say you were. But be careful not to rescue ghosts instead of the girl in front of you." Marcus didn't answer. He stood there for a long moment before turning to leave. That night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling fan slowly rotating above him, he thought about Darnell Pierce, about the way the man had stood before Anna at the grave, about the dead look in his eyes, and about the house, Anna's home, or whatever was now in that man's hands. It wasn't right. He rose before dawn the next morning and went down to the office. The lights on the estate glowed dimly, the snow falling in gentle waves outside the windows. He called Lawrence again. "I want you to find out everything," he said. "Investigate Darnell's finances, the transfer of the deed, the mortgage. No matter how deep you have to go. Do you think he faked something? I think he wanted the house more than the girl, and I think he's willing to lie to get her." "I'll call you in 48 hours, Lawrence said. Marcus hung up and turned to the fireplace. He opened the drawer and the side table beside it. Inside was an old folder labeled Sarah's Final Weeks. He hadn't opened it since the funeral, medical records, palliative care notes, nurses' messages. But now he was looking for one document in particular, a handwritten note from Anna's mother. He remembered Sarah showing him the note once. She said she liked writing letters, Sarah had said, even to herself. He found it, folded inside a sketchbook. The handwriting was impeccable. Round. If anything happens to me, I hope someone kind will take care of my Anna. I don't have much to leave her, but she's good. So good. Please don't let her be forgotten. Marcus closed the book with trembling hands. That afternoon, he brought a small box for Anna. Inside, there was a new look for his teddy bear. I was terrible at sewing, he said, but Ruth supervised. Anna smiled wider this time as she hugged the bear. What's his name again? He asked. Justice, she whispered. He nodded. Then justice deserves both eyes. And maybe, just maybe, the world too. The next morning dawned with a quiet tension in the air. The snow had stopped sometime during the night, leaving behind a smooth, shiny layer that covered everything in sight. The trees in the backyard looked like they'd been dipped in sugar. But inside the Williams estate, the atmosphere was far from pleasant. Marcus sat at the breakfast table, staring into his untouched coffee. Across from him, Anna spooned warm oatmeal into her mouth with slow, deliberate movements. She hadn't spoken much this morning, at least not yet. But she watched him, studying his face as if waiting for something. Maybe a sign that she was still safe. I have to go somewhere today, Marcus said finally, keeping his tone calm. Anna looked up. I won't be long, just a few hours. Ruth will be here with you. Where are you going? She asked softly. Marcus hesitated. To your old home. The spoon froze in her hand. Why? I need to see what Darnell is doing. He's claiming the house is now his, but if your mother left anything behind, anything that proves otherwise, I want to find it. Anna's face went blank, like a curtain falling. He changed the locks. I know, Marcus said, but I won't knock. She looked at him, alarmed. I won't take anything that isn't mine, he assured her. Subscribe to the channel and let us know what you think in the comments so far. Let's get back to the story. But if your mother wrote something like a letter or a will, I need to know. That house could still be yours. Anna didn't answer, but her eyes fell on the porridge, suddenly embarrassed. Did she mention hiding things? Marcus asked gently. Maybe a box or papers? Anna's fingers tightened around the spoon. Then she nodded. There was a green can under the floorboards. In the bedroom closet, she said it was for emergencies. Marcus leaned forward. Are you sure? She told me not to touch it. Anna whispered. But I saw her put papers inside and a picture of her and me. Marcus stood up. So this is what I'll find. 2 hours later, Marcus parked 2 doors down from Anna's old house. It was a modest single-story bungalow on a corner lot, with a peeling mailbox and a crooked porch railing. It seemed even smaller now that he saw it through her eyes. That's where she was raised, loved, and abandoned. Darnell's car is gone. Great. Marcus walked quickly down the side alley, avoiding the snow-covered path that led to the front door. He carried a small crowbar in his coat, just in case, and wore gloves to avoid leaving marks, though he wasn't worried about getting caught. He wasn't there to steal. He was there to witness it. He opened the back window, slid it up with practiced ease, and climbed in. The house was silent and cold. The heat had clearly been turned off. Boxes lined the hallway, some open, some already taped shut. Darnell was getting ready to sell, or move, or both. Marcus walked carefully down the hallway, passing the kitchen, which still had 2 dirty mugs in the sink. The living room smelled faintly of dust and stale beer. He entered the bedroom at the end of the hall. It was empty except for a mattress on the floor and a cracked mirror leaning against the wall. The closet door was open, and inside, only a few wire hangers swayed gently, like ghosts swaying silently. Marcus sank down. He ran his fingers along the floor, tapping gently until he heard a hollow thud. He reached into his coat, pulled out a small screwdriver, and began prying up the floorboard. After a moment, she relented. There it was, a green tin box, scratched and dusty, but intact. He opened it with careful hands. Inside, a folded birth certificate. Anna's name in bold, her mother's signature, a photo of Anna, maybe 3 years old, with her cheeks full and smiling. Her mother held her. Her eyes were tired but happy. And at the bottom, a letter. For anyone who finds this, the handwriting is misaligned. If anything happens to me, and Anna is alone, this is proof that she belongs in our home. No one else has a right to her. I was about to make a will, but I didn't have the money to pay a lawyer. I trusted Darnell. Perhaps foolishly. But this house was bought with my money. My late husband left it to me. And everything in it is for Anna. If you can read this, please protect her. Marcus folded the letter carefully and returned it to the box. He exhaled slowly, feeling something hard crumble in his chest. That was more than enough to start a legal battle. More than a lifeline. It was proof. As he stood to leave, a sharp click echoed through the house. The front door. Someone was home. He froze. Darnell's voice echoed. "Damn snow! I forgot my phone charger." Marcus tucked the box into his coat and went to the window. But before he could escape, Darnell's voice grew louder. "Wait a minute." Footsteps. Faster now. Marcus climbed out the back window just as Darnell burst into the room. He ran down the alley, reached his car, and sped off just as Darnell appeared on the front porch, shouting after him. "You think you can break into my house, Williams? See you in court." Marcus didn't answer. He was already calling the lawyer. Back at the property, Anna was sitting by the window, the bear in her lap. When she saw Marcus's car arriving, she didn't rush to greet him. But her shoulders slumped slightly. She was holding her breath. He walked in, brushing the snow off his coat. Ruth looked up from the kitchen. "Well?" she asked. Marcus set the green can on the counter. Ruth raised an eyebrow. "You found it?" "And more." He looked at Anna. She walked slowly, her eyes fixed on the can. Marcus opened it. He let her see for herself. She picked up the photo, her little fingers caressing the edge. "She wore this dress to my birthday," she whispered. Then she looked at Marcus. "Is that enough to stop him?" Marcus nodded. "We'll make sure you get back what's yours." Anna didn't smile, but she didn't look away either. And in that steady, questioning gaze, Marcus saw what she hadn't said aloud: hope, silence, caution. But there, the next morning, Marcus sat in Lawrence Blackwell's office, overlooking downtown Chicago. The windows stretched from floor to ceiling, the horizon covered in a thin layer of white snow, muffling the usual chaos of the city. But inside the room, tension hummed like electricity. Lawrence, a man known for his composure, looked visibly agitated as he spread documents across the table. "Did you break in?" Lawrence asked, adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses. "I didn't steal anything," Marcus replied calmly. "Everything I took belonged to Anna and her mother. I have the photo, the letter, the birth certificate. This proves the intent, even if it's not a formal will." Lawrence rubbed his forehead. "Intention is not ownership. You're lucky Darnell hasn't filed a police report yet." "He threatened to call the police on a 6-year-old girl," Marcus said quietly. "He locked her in the laundry room. I'm not concerned with his moral superiority." Lawrence looked at him carefully. "You really want to do this? I'm already doing it," Marcus said. "Tell me what we need to keep her safe. Permanently." Lawrence picked up a notepad. "Okay, first, we filed a petition for emergency temporary custody based on abandonment and risk of harm. We'll need character witnesses, school records, medical records, anything that demonstrates you can provide a stable environment. That green can, and the letter, They'll help, but they're not infallible. Darnell will fight back, especially if he thinks you're threatening the house. I don't want him anywhere near it, Marcus said flatly. She's scared of him, so we need to be ready for court. You'll need to testify, and maybe she needs it too. Marcus tensed. She's 6 years old. I won't subject her to this. If he insists on custody or visitation rights, we may not have a choice. Marcus stood and walked to the window. Below, taxis crawled through the muddy streets. The city moved in slow motion. His voice was low when he spoke again. Yesterday she asked me if that meant she belonged somewhere now. Lawrence looked up. And what did you tell her? I said yes. Then we'll fight, Lawrence said, picking up the phone. I'll file the emergency petition today. Back at the estate, Anna sat cross-legged on the library rug, calmly coloring in a notebook Ruth had given her. The television was off. The tablet Marcus had given her was still untouched in its box. She didn't ask for any toys. She didn't ask any questions. But when Ruth brought a plate of grilled cheese sandwiches, she looked up with wide, wary eyes. Did he say if I had to go back? Ruth sat beside her, brushing invisible crumbs from her apron. No one's going to send you anywhere, dear. Anna pressed the crayon harder on the page. He said I was just a burden. That mother only kept me around because she felt guilty. Ugh. Ruth felt her jaw tighten. That man knows nothing about love. Anna hesitated. He said, people like me can't live in houses like this. Ruth reached out and gently turned Anna's face to hers. Listen, honey. This house, these walls, they don't care what color they are. But people believe, and some of them are just plain wrong. That doesn't mean you believe them. Anna's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. At that moment, the front door opened, and Marcus's footsteps echoed down the hall. Where's my lawyer? Ruth shouted. Marcus appeared in the doorway, brushing snow off his coat. He's filling out the paperwork now. Anna stood up slowly. Are they going to ask me questions? Marcus crouched down to her level. Maybe, but only if necessary, and I'll be there with you. She nodded, her lower lip trembling. I don't want to lie. You won't have to, he said softly. All you have to do is tell the truth. What if they say I can't stay? Marcus took a deep breath. Then, gently, he placed his hand on her shoulder. They won't stay, he said. I'll guarantee it. 2 days later, they appeared before the family court judge for the emergency custody hearing. The courtroom was silent and sterile, with gray-paneled walls and buzzing fluorescent lights. Anna sat next to Ruth in the front row. Her little hands clutched the justice bear. Marcus sat at the defendant's table with Lawrence, while Darnell sat smugly across the aisle, arms crossed and wearing a smart blazer that tried to hide the bitterness beneath. The judge, a gray-haired woman named Marla Kinsey, looked at the file with pursed lips. Mr. Williams, you are not biologically related to the child. What is your standing for emergency custody? Lawrence stood. Your Honor. Mr. Williams is filing a petition for abandonment, supported by eyewitness testimony and physical evidence found at the child's former residence. We also have a declaration of intent from the mother and a declaration of good standing from the child's current caretaker. Judge Kinsey leafed through the documents, frowning. And what is Mr. Pierce's position on this matter? Darnell stood up. She's not my daughter. I was married to her mother for less than 2 years. The house is legally mine now, and I'm not prepared to raise a child, but I also don't agree to a stranger taking it. You abandoned it, Marcus said, stepping forward. You packed her clothes in a plastic bag and left her in the snow next to her mother's grave. That's a lie. She was crying next to the coffin, and you told her to find her way home on her own. I told her the truth, Darnell barked. Children need to learn that life isn't fair. Silence fell over the courtroom. Judge Kinsey looked at Darnell. Her expression was hard. "And where did you take her when you left the cemetery?" the judge asked, shaking her head slowly. "Mr. Williams, how has the child adjusted to your home? She's eating, sleeping, and talking slowly, but she's safe. And do you intend to apply for permanent custody?" Marcus looked at Anna. So, back to the judge. "Yes," he said, "I accept." The judge leaned back in her chair and tapped her pen twice on the table. "Emergency custody is granted to Mr. Williams for a period of 90 days, pending the investigation. The child will remain in his care during this period, and a court-appointed social worker will conduct home visits and interviews. Final custody will be determined after review," Darnell said abruptly. "So that's it? You're going to hand her over?" Judge Kinsey narrowed her eyes. "No, Mr. Pierce. I'm protecting her from you." With that, she banged her gavel once, ending the session. Outside the courthouse, the snow began to fall again, softly and slowly. Marcus crouched down beside Anna and zipped up her coat. "Look," he said gently, "you're not going anywhere." Anna looked at him in silent disbelief. "I can stay for now." He smiled. "And hopefully forever." She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small paper heart she'd folded from a page in her coloring book. She handed it to him. "For keeping her promise," she said. Marcus took the paper, holding it carefully in his palm. "Thank you," he said, "not just for the paper, but for believing." Marcus had dealt with investors, federal regulators, and billion-dollar boardroom wars before. But nothing in his life had required more patience or restraint than learning to braid a 6-year-old's hair. Anna sat perfectly still on the office floor, her knees tucked under her, her favorite sweatshirt slipping off one shoulder, her unruly curls damp from the shower. And Ruth had left Marcus with specific instructions. 2 braids, parted in the middle. Be gentle with your scalp. Gentle. Marcus could create an artificial intelligence algorithm in his sleep. But untangling the top of a grieving child's head was another story. "Ouch," Anna said softly. "Sorry," Marcus murmured. "I think I got it this time." She didn't flinch anymore. She simply sat, staring out the large window, where snow had begun to fall again, fine, dry flakes coating the glass like powdered sugar. "Do you think I'll still be here for Christmas?" she asked, without turning around. Marcus paused, holding the half-formed braid in his hands. 4 weeks to go. Why do you ask?" She shrugged. "He always said I'd end up in foster care by Christmas." Marcus felt something inside him twist, something sharp and cold. He delicately finished the braid, tied it, and sat across from her. "Anna," he said, keeping his voice steady, "you'll still be here for Christmas and New Year's, and your birthday, and every day after that, unless you decide otherwise." She looked at him, her eyes wide and wary. "Are you serious?" "I don't say things I don't mean." She was silent for a moment. "Can we make pancakes for Christmas? Heart-shaped?" She nodded. "Of course." A small smile appeared on his face, the first that seemed unguarded. That night, after Ruth put Anna to bed and turned out the light, Marcus returned to his office. The green canister sat on the table, its contents now carefully preserved in a folder marked "Custody, Pierce Case." Lawrence had assured him that a full review of the case was underway and that the court-appointed social worker would visit the following week. Still, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. At 2:13 a.m., the security system beeped. Marcus sat bolt upright in bed, adrenaline surging through him before his brain caught up. Movement detected in the backyard, the mechanical voice announced. He pulled out his phone and opened the camera's live feed. There, at the edge of the yard, stood a dark figure standing near the garden gate. Darnell. He smoked, paced slowly, and stared at the house with a deliberate coldness that made Marcus shiver. Without hesitation, Marcus called the police. When they arrived 15 minutes later, Darnell was gone, but not before carving something into the snow on Marcus's windshield. Thieves get what they deserve. The next morning, Marcus showed the footage to Ruth. "He's getting desperate," she murmured, "and that makes it dangerous. I've already added extra cameras, motion lights, and rapid-fire alarms. We need more than just devices," Ruth said, crossing her arms. "We need to tell Anna." Marcus hesitated. "She's starting to feel safe here." "Exactly," Ruth fired, "which means she deserves the truth. Children feel fear better than dogs. If we don't tell her, she'll make up something worse." Later that day, after Anna finished her spelling lesson and was curled up on the living room rug drawing snowmen and bears, Marcus knelt beside her. "Can we talk for a moment?" he asked. She looked up, crayon in hand. "I want to tell you something important, and I want you to know that no matter what I say next, you're safe. Understand?" She nodded, her body tense. "Darnell came to the house last night." Her face closed. "He didn't try to come in. He just stood outside. The police arrived, and he left. But I thought you should know." Anna looked at the floor. "He used to do that. When Mom was late from work, he'd just stand at the window, waiting." Marcus's stomach churned. "He's not coming in, Anna." "Never. I promise." "Uh-huh." She was silent for a long moment. Then, almost in a whisper, she asked, "Will he try to take me back?" "No," Marcus replied firmly. "Not if I have anything to say about it." "What if the judge says yes?" He hesitated. "Just for a second. Then I'll fight harder." Anna reached out and took his hand, small and trembling. "Will you still fight if I make mistakes?" Marcus felt something open in his chest, "Especially now," he said. Later that week, the court-appointed social worker arrived. Her name was Miss Paula Hughes, a tall woman in her 50s with comfortable shoes, a warm smile, and a clipboard that seemed surgically attached to her arm. She spent nearly 3 hours in the house, inspecting the kitchen, bedrooms, bathrooms, and backyard. She interviewed Marcus in detail about his routines, his background, his finances, and his parenting philosophy. So she sat with Anna. They talked alone in the library, while Marcus stood in the hallway, his heart pounding, hearing muffled voices. When she finished, Miss Hughes thanked them both and promised that a full report would be presented to the court. "She's smart," she said as she left, "and quiet. But she knows who to trust." "She's been through hell," Marcus said, "and she still wants to draw for you." Paula smiled. "That means something." That night, after dinner, Anna brought Marcus a drawing. It was clearly a house, his house, with tall windows and a yard covered in snowflakes. Standing in front were 2 figures, one tall and one short, both smiling. In the child's handwriting, at the bottom, were 3 words: "This is home." Marcus stared at the drawing for a long moment, his throat tight. She stood beside him, watching his reaction closely. "Did you like it?" she asked, almost fearfully. He looked at her and gently pulled her into a hug. "I love it," he said. "It's perfect." Anna rested her head on his chest, and for the first time since arriving, she whispered something he never expected to hear. "Good night, Dad." Marcus didn't correct her. He just hugged her tighter. It had been 3 days since Anna had called him Dad. Marcus hadn't stopped thinking about it ever since. The word came unannounced, soft as snow, yet it echoed louder in his soul than any court verdict ever had. He didn't correct her, and she never said it again. But it hung in the air between them now, unspoken, fragile, sacred. Marcus sat in his office that morning, a cup of black coffee cooling beside him. While reviewing the caseworker's preliminary report, Ruth had found it in the mailbox earlier. Stamped "Confidential" and signed by Paula Hughes. He read each line slowly. "Anna displays signs of trauma, induced anxiety, and emotional withdrawal, but demonstrates remarkable resilience. Mr. Williams's home provides physical safety, emotional stability, and adequate educational support. The bond between them is forming rapidly. Her preference to remain under his care has been stated clearly and without hesitation. Marcus put down the report and leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. One step closer. His phone vibrated. A message from Lawrence. Darnell filed a counterclaim. He demands full custody or purchase rights to the house. He claims Anna is manipulating the system. Marcus gritted his teeth. Gaming the system. She was 6 years old. He picked up the phone and called immediately. "What's the point?" Marcus asked when Lawrence responded. "He's painting you as a rich, white savior who showed up unexpectedly and used your money to steal a child. That's disgusting." "Effective," Lawrence said bluntly. "He has a new lawyer, a ruthless one. They're building a narrative. You're compensating for the pain, playing hero. There's no legal basis for long-term guardianship. I have Anna's mother's letter and her daughter's trust fund. It doesn't matter if they turn this into a PR circus. You need to be prepared." "I was born prepared," Marcus said. Then he paused. "But Anna wasn't there. She shouldn't be." Lawrence sighed. "There's another problem. Darnell claims the house legally passed to him when her mother died, without a will, no prenup. He wants you out of that property, even retroactively. So he's more after the house than the girl. He wants both. The house gives him an advantage. The girl gives him sympathy." Marcus stood and walked to the window. His fists clenched. "I'll reveal everything," he said. "If he wants to make a circus out of this, let's shine the spotlight on him. Background checks, financials, police records." "There's only one thing," Lawrence added. "The courts have appointed a new child psychologist to evaluate Anna before the final hearing. If she freezes or says something wrong—" "I understand," Lawrence hesitated. "Are you sure you're ready for this, Marcus?" Marcus turned from the window. "I've never been so sure of anything in my life." That afternoon, Ruth took Anna to the market to give Marcus a break. He took the time to rummage through all the old files, receipts, and legal documents Anna's mother kept in the green bin. He found medical records, a photocopy of a tax return, even a note scrawled on the back of a shopping list that read, "If anything happens to me, Anna goes to Mr. Williams. He helped my daughter once. He will help her again." It wasn't a notarized will, but it was something. It was history. It was intention. When Ruth and Anna returned, the little girl was beaming. "I got apples," she said, holding up a small brown bag. "And Ruth let me pick a cinnamon stick." Marcus knelt down to her level. "How wonderful, but I need to talk to you about something." Anna's smile faded. "Shall I leave?" "No," he said quickly. "But a nice doctor will talk to you next week. She'll ask you questions. About me. About Darnell. About how you're feeling." Anna looked down. "Will she send me away if I say something wrong?" "No," Marcus said gently. "There are no wrong answers. Just be honest. Tell her how you feel." She hesitated. "Will you be there?" "I can't be in the room, but I'll be outside. You'll never be alone." Anna nodded, her eyes wide. Then she whispered, "He used to say no one would ever believe me." Marcus's heart raced. "I believe him." That night, as the snow began to fall again, Marcus stood by the fireplace, reading about the next court hearing. It was only a week away. Too soon. And not soon enough. Anna was asleep upstairs, justice tucked under her arm. Ruth was cleaning up dinner in the kitchen, humming an old blues song under her breath. The doorbell rang. Marcus checked the security video. Nothing but a dark figure out of the frame. He opened the door cautiously. There was an envelope on the doormat. Inside, photos, grainy, black and white, taken with a long-range lens. Marcus hugging Anna in the backyard. Anna sleeping in the car. Marcus handing her a backpack at the courthouse. The last one was of Anna crying. No note. Just the photos. Marcus's blood ran cold. It was a message, and it wasn't subtle. He showed the envelope to Ruth. That man was chasing her. She hissed, "He's getting worse. I know. But that also means he's desperate. He's losing, and he knows it. Desperate men do stupid things." Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat in the hallway outside Anna's room, his laptop on his lap, tracking court records, compiling files, building a digital fortress around your case. Every few minutes, he glanced up to make sure the door was still closed. The nightlight still glowed a soft blue below. By dawn, he had sent 30 pages of evidence to Lawrence. Subject, "Let's bury him." Because Marcus wasn't fighting for just one house anymore, or a custody hearing. He was fighting for the little girl who called him Dad, even when she herself was afraid to believe it, and no one would take that away from her. Monday arrived like a slow storm. Gray skies stretched over Chicago, plunging the entire city into a quiet melancholy. The kind of day when even the buildings seemed to whisper. Inside the Williams estate, however, everything was tense and alert. Court-appointed child psychologist, Dr. Elaine Sorensen was scheduled to arrive at 10 p.m. Ruth had been baking muffins since sunrise, not because anyone would eat them, but because the smell made the house feel safe. Marcus had reviewed Anna's timeline and the psychologist's credentials 3 times that morning. His nervousness was barely hidden beneath his pressed shirt and steady voice. Anna was wearing her favorite sweater, the one with the stars, and clutching tightly to the Justice Bear, which now had a second button sewn onto the chest, a makeshift heart sewn in red. "I don't have to lie, do I?" she asked Marcus softly as he knelt beside her near the library. "No," he replied gently. "You just need to tell her the truth. How you feel. What happened. What do you want?" Anna looked at him. "What if I want to stay here forever? Then that's what you tell her." The doorbell rang. Anna jumped and grabbed Marcus's hand. "It's okay," he whispered. "I'll be right out." Dr. Elaine Sorensen was in her 60s, wearing a long gray coat, wire-rimmed glasses, and a gentle smile that barely reached her eyes. She introduced herself to Ruth and Marcus with professional warmth and knelt beside Anna. "Hello, Anna," she said softly. "Is it okay if we sit and talk for a bit? You can bring your bear." Anna nodded slightly. Marcus watched them enter the office. The door closed softly behind them. He stood outside, arms crossed, listening only to the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Each minute passed like a mile. Inside, Dr. Sorensen put down her leather notebook and pen, but didn't open them. She simply sat cross-legged on the floor across from Anna, as if she had all the time in the world. "Justice is his name," she asked, waving at the bear. Anna nodded. He had only one eye. But Marcus healed him. It was kind of him. "Do you like living here with Marcus?" Anna was quiet. "So?" "It feels safe." "How does it feel safe?" Anna looked at her hands. "Like no one's going to scream or lock you in the dark." Dr. Sorensen nodded slowly. "Has anyone ever done this before?" Anna's voice deepened. "He said I was speaking too loudly. So he put me in the laundry room, for hours, with the lights off. Who did this?" "Darnell." "And did you tell anyone at the time?" "Mom knew. She tried to stop you. Then she got sick." "What did Marcus do when you told him?" "He said I'd never have to go back there again." Dr. Sorensen smiled. "And do you believe him?" Anna looked her straight in the eye. "Yes." They talked for almost an hour. About school, about Marcus's pancakes, about Sarah, Marcus's late daughter, and the way her picture smiled on the hallway wall, about the snow outside and how Justice didn't like the cold but enjoyed hugs. And when Dr. Sorensen finally stood and opened her notebook, she said gently, "One last question. Anna, if the judge asked you who you wanted to live with, what would you say?" Anna didn't hesitate. "I want to stay here, with my father." Outside, Marcus saw the door open and straightened. Dr. Sorensen came out, closing the door behind her. "She's extraordinary," she said softly, cautiously, but intelligently. "Deep trauma, but she's resilient." Marcus nodded, searching her face for clues. "I'll write a full report," she said, putting the notebook back in her bag. But I'll tell you something now. Unofficially, she trusts you. That matters." He exhaled, feeling a weight lift from his chest. "She said you told her she never had to come back." Sorensen added, "Don't play the liar." "I won't." Later that night, Ruth made a roast, and the three of them ate in the kitchen like a real family. Subscribe to the channel and leave your opinion below. It might appear in the next video. Now, back to the story. Anna had more time than usual. And Marcus noticed her humming softly as she ate something she hadn't eaten since arriving. After dinner, Anna insisted on helping Ruth dry the dishes. Marcus stood in the dining room, his cell phone vibrating with a new email. From Lawrence Blackwell. Subject, Discovery File. Urgent. Body. You'll want to see this. Darnell's record is worse than we thought. He opened the attachment. There it was. A sealed domestic assault charge from 4 years before Darnell met Anna's mother. The charge had been buried in another state, dismissed for lack of victim testimony. But it was real. And it wasn't the only thing. Along with it, there was a financial collapse. Darnell had taken out a second mortgage on the house just 6 days after Anna's mother's death. He claimed immediate financial hardship, but the funds were funneled into a now depleted sports betting account. Marcus stared at the screen, anger boiling under his breath. He wasn't just a negligent stepfather. He was a con man, and now he was using Anna's name, her story, as a tool to gain influence in court. Marcus forwarded the documents to Lawrence with a single sentence: "We'll bury you in this." 2 nights later, Marcus was reading in his office when Ruth burst through the door. Breathless. "He's outside." Marcus jumped. "What? Darnell?" "In the driveway. He's not alone." Marcus acted quickly, turning on the security cameras. There were 2 men standing next to a dark SUV. Both dressed in black. One of them was carrying what looked like a crowbar. "Call the police," Marcus said, already heading for the foyer, but before he could unlock the front door. Headlights flashed behind the SUV. A patrol car, its lights off, had stopped silently, having been summoned by Marcus's security team when the movement alerts went off 10 minutes earlier. The officers exited with determination. Darnell and his friend didn't run. They simply stood there, trapped like children clutching stolen candy. Marcus opened the front door and stepped out onto the porch. "You made a mistake tonight," he said calmly. Darnell growled. "This isn't over, Williams." "No," Marcus agreed, "but you are." As the officers handcuffed Darnell, one of them turned to Marcus. "Do you want to press charges?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "Absolutely." He stood there, arms crossed, as the car drove off with Darnell inside. Behind him, Anna peered out from behind the curtain, her eyes wide. "Is he gone?" she asked. Marcus turned and walked toward her. "Yes, and he's not coming back." She ran into his arms without a word, her whole body trembling. Marcus lifted her up, hugged her tightly, and for the first time realized that the war wasn't just about legal custody or property rights. It was about something deeper, about telling a child, once and for all, that she would never be abandoned again. The morning of the final custody hearing dawned bitterly cold, the kind of Chicago cold that cut through layers of clothing. Frost coated the windows of the Williams estate as Marcus stood in the doorway, watching Anna pull on a pea-green coat Ruth had left the night before. "Do I need to talk?" Anna asked softly, her voice barely louder than the rustle of the coat's sleeves. Marcus knelt before her and buttoned the last clasp. "Maybe," he said. "But only if the judge deems it necessary. And if that happens, you simply speak your truth. That's all." Anna looked at him, searching for reassurance. "Will you be there?" "Every step of the way." The drive to the courthouse was silent, except for the soft hum of the heater and the occasional crunch of ice shifting under the tires. Ruth also arrived, dressed in her Sunday best, her lips pressed into a thin line that Marcus knew meant seriousness. She had already testified in the pre-trial, but she wanted to be there today to testify, as she called it. When they entered the courtroom lobby, Lawrence Blackwell greeted them with a stern nod. He handed Marcus a folder. Darnell's new attorney filed another motion this morning, an emergency motion to postpone the decision. He claims his arrest 2 nights ago was an unlawful detention. Marcus is unfazed. It won't work. Lawrence gave a small smile. Better not. The judge is already reviewing the psychologist's report. And the financial records? They were harsh, very harsh. Then, inside the courtroom, the air grew heavier than usual. Judge Kinsey sat imposingly on the bench, reading from a thick folder of notes. Darnell sat at the plaintiff's table, his arm in a sling, likely from his encounter with the police, and a new, younger attorney stood beside him. He wore a black suit and a sour scowl, his eyes fixed on Anna like a predator sizing up its prey. Marcus sat next to Lawrence, keeping Anna close on his other side. She gripped the judge bear tightly, her small fingers unwavering. "Court is in session," the bailiff announced. Judge Kinsey looked up, his gaze piercing. "This hearing concerns the custody of the minor Anna Mae Holloway. Both parties will have the opportunity to speak. We will also consider new evidence presented to the court regarding Mr. Pierce's prior conduct and financial history." Darnell's attorney rose first, his voice smooth as oil on glass. He painted a picture of confusion and misunderstanding, arguing that Marcus's wealth and influence had coerced the narrative, suggesting that Anna's affection had been manipulated through lavish gifts and comfort. He spoke for 10 minutes without once mentioning the child's name. Then it was Lawrence's turn. He stood, calm and deliberate, walking the judge through the sequence of events: Anna's abandonment, locked in a laundry room, the sealed abuse record, the gambling debt, and, above all, her mother's written wish that Marcus raise her if anything happened. When Lawrence finished, Judge Kinsey sat back, her gaze thoughtful. "I'd like to hear from the child," she said. Marcus's heart skipped a beat. Anna looked at him, her eyes wide. "You don't have to," he whispered. "You can say no." But Anna shook her head. "All right," the judge smiled kindly. "Anna, you can come sit here with me if that makes you more comfortable." Anna slowly stood up and walked forward. Justice snuggled under one arm. Her steps were short but firm. The courtroom was completely silent. When she reached the bench, the judge bent down. "How are you feeling today, Anna?" Anna nodded. "Okay, can I ask you a few questions?" Anna looked at Marcus one last time, then back at the judge. "Yes." "Ma'am, do you understand why we're here?" Anna nodded. "To see where I'm going to live." "That's right. Can you tell me where you feel safe?" Anna looked around the room. Her voice was almost a whisper, but clear. "With Marcus. And who makes you afraid?" "Darnell," she said immediately. Judge Kinsey paused and said gently, "Can you tell me why?" Anna looked down at her shoes. "He locked me in the dark. He said I was a mistake. He told Mom I messed up. And after she died, he told me I had to leave because I didn't belong there." The courtroom fell into complete silence. Judge Kinsey asked softly, "And what does Marcus do for you?" Anna looked up again. "He's listening. He makes pancakes. He reads bedtime stories. He dispenses justice. He says I belong." Tears welled up in Marcus's eyes, and he didn't try to hide them. "Thank you, Anna," the judge said. "You were very brave." Anna returned to her seat next to Marcus, who gently hugged her. The judge took a deep breath and looked around the courtroom. I have reviewed the case in its entirety, including the reports from social workers and psychologists, as well as the legal arguments and new evidence presented by Mr. Williams's attorney. The court finds clear and convincing evidence of neglect and emotional abuse by Mr. Darnell Pierce. She paused, and the silence stretched like a thread. Effective immediately. Sole legal and physical custody of Anna Mae Holloway is awarded to Marcus Williams. A quiet gasp ran through the courtroom. Darnell jumped to his feet. "This is ridiculous. You're just handing her over to some rich guy." The judge banged her gavel hard. "Mr. Pierce, you are prohibited from contacting or approaching the child. Any violation of this order will result in criminal charges." The security guards approached him, but he stopped, gritting his teeth. "You'll regret this." He hissed at Marcus as he was escorted out. Marcus didn't respond. He was already turned to Anna. She looked at him, her eyes wide with cautious hope. "Does this mean—" "I stay." Marcus knelt and cupped her face in his hands. "No, Anna, that means you're home." She smiled, quite a smile, a wide, radiant, and fearless smile. Then she did something Marcus didn't expect. She stood up, turned to the judge, and said, "Thank you for listening to me." The judge blinked in surprise, then nodded warmly. "You're welcome, dear. That took a lot of courage." Outside the courthouse, reporters were already gathering. Lawrence pulled Marcus aside. "Do you want to speak to the press?" Marcus shook his head. "Not today. I'll take care of it later." As they walked toward the car, Ruth opened her arms wide. That girl made every woman in that courtroom cry. Anna ran to hug her. They walked back to the estate in silence. Anna stared out the window, justice in her lap. Then, as the gates opened and the familiar entrance appeared, she whispered, "I think Mom would be happy. She would be proud," Marcus said. "Me too." Later that night, Ruth brought out a cake she had secretly baked. On top, in red frosting, were the words, "Welcome home, Anna." They lit candles. They sang. They danced in the kitchen. And for the first time in a long, long time, Anna laughed out loud, carefree and full of life, because she wasn't alone. She was just beginning. The days following the custody hearing felt like a new chapter, not just for Anna, but for Marcus as well. The house felt lighter, somehow less like a mausoleum of memories and more like a home finally catching its breath. The laughter returned, echoing from the kitchen where Ruth taught Anna how to make cookie dough, to the library where Marcus and Anna built towers of books taller than she was. But beneath the warmth, a quiet tension still lingered in the corners of Marcus's mind, a sense that the storm hadn't completely passed. One morning, as snow coated the driveway like powdered sugar, Marcus went outside to get the newspaper. A white envelope lay at the foot of the gate, half buried in the melting snow. No stamp, no return address, just his name. Written in capital letters with a marker that pierced the paper. He opened it slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "You stole it. Enjoy your victory. You don't know what it is." There was no signature, no threat, just a statement, a cryptic warning that left Marcus staring at the trees long after the cold bit into his skin. When he brought the thing inside, Ruth took one look and muttered, "That man isn't finished yet." Marcus nodded. "Or someone else is getting involved." He called Lawrence immediately. "We need to run a background check, not just on Darnell. I want to know everything about Anna's mother, friends, family, anyone who might think they have a claim." Lawrence didn't ask any questions. He simply said, "Give me 48 hours. That afternoon, Anna came home from school with a pink drawing in her backpack, a snow angel and a smiling sun. She handed it to Marcus with a smile. "It's me, and it's you in the sun, because you're warm." He swallowed the lump in his throat. "I loved it." Then she said something strange. "Mrs. Jenkins said she knew my mother." Marcus paused. "Who's Mrs. Jenkins?" "My new art teacher. She said Mom worked downtown." They did crafts together. Marcus smiled, though a hint of unease crept over him. He'd never heard of Mrs. Jenkins before. He'd never heard her mother mention her name during Sarah's treatment. Still, it wasn't uncommon for people to appear out of nowhere after a tragedy. Later that night, when Anna was asleep and the house was quiet, Marcus pulled out the green tin box again. It was nearly empty now. Just a few receipts, a dried flower, and a photo of Anna's mother holding her as a baby. But on the back of the photo, scrawled in faded ink, were the initials 12W. "Tell her the truth someday." 2W, Marcus murmured, "Not Darnell, someone else." He examined the image again. In the background, almost in focus, was a younger man standing next to Anna's mother, white, tall, wearing a baseball cap. His hand rested gently on the woman's shoulder. Marcus took a photo of the image and sent it to Lawrence with the message, "Find out who 2W Island Cross is. Check for any previous claims of guardianship or custody." The next day, Marcus decided to visit Anna's school. Not as a gesture of protection, but to meet Mrs. Jenkins in person. He introduced himself to the office and was directed to the art room, where children's paintings hung like stained glass in the windows. Mrs. Jenkins was a woman in her early 40s. She had a warm smile, dreadlocks tied back in a scarf, and paint stains on her sleeves. "Are you Anna's guardian?" she asked. "Yes, Marcus Williams. She's an extraordinary girl, quiet yet expressive. I could tell right away there was more going on than she was letting on. But she's resilient." "You said you knew her mother?" Mrs. Jenkins nodded. "We volunteered together years ago, providing art therapy for cancer patients. When Anna was just a child, Marcus got involved. Do you know anyone named T.W.?" She frowned. "Twiff." Then, slowly, her eyes widened. "You're not talking about Travis West. Who is that?" "It was him." "Well, that's complicated. He and Monique, Anna's mother, dated before Darnell. For a brief time, he disappeared shortly after Anna was born." Disappeared. Just left. No contact. There were rumors that he had problems with the law, drugs, theft. She never spoke of him again. She said he wasn't worth remembering. Marcus felt a shiver run through his body. Is there any chance he'll try to come back? Mrs. Jenkins shrugged. Unless he thinks he's owed something. Back at the estate, Marcus had barely made it through the door when his phone rang. It was Lawrence. "Got your T.W.? Travis West?" Bingo. He was never legally listed on Anna's birth certificate, but there's circumstantial evidence that he might be her biological father. Hospital bills, timeline, even an old visitation dispute that never made it to court. Marcus froze. Is he alive? Oh, he's more than alive. He's in Chicago. He was released from state prison 5 months ago. He has ties to a fringe father's rights group, which means he could be the one leaving the letters. I don't rule that out. He hasn't officially registered anything. Still. Marcus looked out the window. He squinted at the long stretch of snow-covered driveway. "Keep an eye on him," he said. "If he tries anything, I want to know before it happens." He hung up, his heart pounding. Just when he thought the storm had passed, another shadow threatened to loom. That night, as Marcus tucked Anna into bed, she looked at him with sleepy eyes. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Yeah." He lied. "It looks like you're holding your breath." Marcus sat beside her. Sometimes adults worry too. "About me? About your safety?" Anna took his hand and squeezed it. "You already know." He smiled, brushing a curl from her forehead. "Want to hear a story?" She nodded. Then he told her a story about a lion who found an injured bird, and how he sheltered her during a storm. Even when the world told him it was dangerous, he made up the ending as he went along. But in the final lines, the lion stood before his nest and growled at the sky. "If the storm wants her, she'll have to go through me." When Anna finally fell asleep, Marcus sat there longer than necessary. Because now he knew this wasn't just about courts and custody papers. It was about blood, secrets, and a man in the shadows who might still believe Anna belonged to him. But Marcus had already made his vow, and no one, no ghost from the past, no coward in the dark, would take her away. The snow fell heavily that morning, smothering the world in silence, as if the sky itself were holding its breath. Inside the Williams estate, the warmth of the fireplace couldn't dispel the discomfort that had settled in Marcus's chest. The name Travis West kept echoing in his mind like clockwork. He still hadn't told Anna about him. There were some ghosts too dangerous to name aloud. Marcus sat in his office, his eyes fixed on the security system. The gates were closed. The perimeter sensors were still, but the threat didn't seem far away. He seemed to be nearby, watching. The phone rang. Lawrence was seen near a community center on the south side, Lawrence reported, working with a group called Parents for Justice. They're loud, mostly harmless, except Travis isn't like the others. What do you mean? He filed a petition of intent to petition this morning. It doesn't have legal standing yet, but it's a first step. He's trying to claim biological paternity. He's pushing for the restoration of paternal rights. Marcus rubbed his temple. No DNA? He's asking the court to require a test. Oh, Marcus's blood ran cold. Can he win? Unlikely. The system doesn't favor irresponsible parents who leave prison without a criminal record, but the situation, especially if he plays the race card, can get complicated. There she was, the real threat, not legality, but narrative. Travis didn't need to be right. He just needed to sow enough doubt. Prepare a complete opposition, Marcus said. Character history, criminal record, history of neglect, everything is ready. That night, Ruth noticed Marcus wasn't eating. She put down her fork and crossed her arms. You're carrying something. Marcus glared at her. Travis West, Anna's biological father. He's in town. Ruth's face fell. That dog, did you know him? She nodded slowly. I knew him. Monique never talked much, but I remember. One time, she came home with bruises. She said it was an accident. I didn't believe her. She cut ties quickly after Anna was born. She never told me that. She wouldn't tell me. She didn't want pity, and she didn't want Anna to grow up knowing her father was a violent coward. Marcus felt the room spin, the weight of this information bearing down on him like fresh snow. He's trying to get custody, Ruth huffed. The only thing he ever caused was trouble. They were silent for a moment. The sound of Anna's laughter came from upstairs as she played with Justice. Then Ruth said softly, She calls you Dad, Marcus. This isn't something you win with blood. It's something you win with gifts. The next day, the court notified. Travis's paternity test request had been accepted. It wasn't a final decision yet, but it meant Marcus had to respond, legally, officially. This time, he met Lawrence in person, sitting at a mahogany desk cluttered with files, testimonies, and photographs. We need to get ahead of this, Lawrence said. The public narrative matters. Travis may not stand a chance in court. But if this gets out in the press, a white billionaire steals a black man's son, you'll be portrayed as the villain in less than a minute. Marcus gritted his teeth. It's not about color. It's about security, stability. You know that. I know that. But public opinion, that's a different battleground. Marcus leaned back, exhaling heavily. So, what's our move? Lawrence has filed a brief. Let's get ahead of the curve. File a motion to terminate any potential parental rights based on abandonment, endangerment, and failure to support. We've attached everything. Travis's criminal record, your criminal record, lack of engagement. And we've included testimonials from people who knew Monique. I'll speak to Miss Jenkins. Great. And sure, Marcus, you have one more thing. If a DNA test is required and he is the biological father, that doesn't automatically guarantee custody, but that complicates things. Marcus was unfazed. He may have helped create her, but he didn't create her. He didn't hold her through her nightmares. He didn't show up. Lawrence nodded. Then we'll show the court who did this. That night, Marcus sat with Anna in the reading corner, pretending to leaf through a picture book. Though he hadn't read a single word, she was snuggled against him, her eyelids heavy with sleep. "Dad," she murmured. "Really? What does real dad mean?" Marcus froze. "Why do you ask that? A boy at school said I didn't have a real father. He said you're just pretending." Marcus put down his book and turned to her. "Anna, do you know what makes someone a real father?" She shook her head. "Showing up," he said. "Be there. Protect you. Love you. No matter what happens. Then you're real." She said softly, and she closed her eyes. Marcus sat there in silence for a long time after she fell asleep. The trial date arrived sooner than expected. Travis appeared in a wrinkled suit and a smug smile. He brought supporters with signs. "Fathers have rights too," and "reunite black families." Marcus didn't react. He walked in with Ruth on one side and Anna's social worker on the other, calm, steady. Inside the courtroom, Lawrence led the charge. He presented a 72-page lawsuit with evidence, Travis's criminal past, years of silence, proof that he knew of Anna's existence and chose not to act. Then the witnesses came forward. Mrs. Jenkins spoke first. "I saw Monique cry after cutting Travis out of her life. She told the judge. She did it to protect her daughter. He was violent. He drank. She was afraid of what he might become." Ruth spoke next. Anna had nightmares for weeks after Monique's death. "Marcus stayed up every night with her. Every night. He never let me go. Finally," Marcus testified. He told the truth. About Sarah. About the loss of his daughter. About the promise he made to a woman he owed nothing to, but who trusted him with everything. "She didn't ask me to raise Anna because I was rich," he said. "She asked me because she saw how much I loved my daughter, because she knew I wouldn't leave Anna behind." Travis stood up. "Uninvited. I'm her blood," he barked. "That counts for something." Judge Kinsey narrowed her eyes. "That counts, Mr. West, but not for everything." She turned to Marcus. "You may leave, Mr. Williams." An hour later, the judge issued her ruling. The court finds no evidence that Mr. West acted in the child's best interests. Biological connection, in the absence of action or intent, does not equate to paternity. The request for custody rights based on paternity was denied. Marcus closed his eyes. It was all over. As they left the courthouse, Ruth smiled. "You didn't just win a case today, you protected a legacy." Marcus nodded. Anna ran to him, hugging him around the waist. "Can we go get pancakes now?" He laughed. "You read my mind." Because after all the courts, documents, and shadows of the past, it all came down to this. He was her father, and that truth didn't need blood to prove it. 2 weeks had passed since the court's decision, and the snow in Chicago had begun to melt, revealing cracked sidewalks and salt-covered driveways. Life on the Williams estate had settled into a leisurely rhythm, flavored with Saturday morning pancakes, Ruth's gospel singing in the kitchen, and Anna's crayons scattered across every available surface. But peace, Marcus had learned, was a fragile thing, and sometimes it was just the silence before the next storm. Marcus was in his office, reviewing the last legal documents Lawrence had forwarded. A symbolic gesture of closure. The court definitively ruled in his favor, and Travis West was legally barred from making any further claims without new evidence. But one detail still nagged at him. A silent itch in the back of his mind. Travis shouted in court, "You don't know what she is." What did that mean? He didn't elaborate. The judge cut him off before he could say anything else, and since then, not a word, not to the press, not online, not in any formal appeal. Silence. Marcus picked up the phone and called Lawrence. "I need to see him." Lawrence paused on the other end of the line. "Travis?" "Yeah, a conversation. Unofficially. Marcus, you already won. I'm not looking for a fight. I'm looking for answers." Lawrence sighed. "He's in jail for violating his probation. You can't meet without permission, so give me permission." That afternoon, Marcus drove to the Cook County Detention Center. No driver, no press, just him. In a dark overcoat, holding only a notepad and pen. He passed through metal detectors, checked in at reception, and was finally led down a sterile hallway to a small reception area with 2 chairs and a sheet of bulletproof glass. Travis West was already seated. He looked thinner, with a scraggly beard and red eyes, but his posture was casual, leaning back, arms crossed. A wry smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Well," Travis said as Marcus sat on the other side of the glass, "I didn't think you'd come." Marcus picked up the phone. "I'm not here to fight," he said. "Fine. You'd lose. I want to know what you meant," Marcus continued. "You don't know what she meant. What does that mean?" Travis's wry smile deepened. "You think you've got it all figured out. You've got your perfect little life. Your dead daughter's empty room is now full again. But Anna? She's not just a sad story you rescued. I never said she was. She was born into something, man. Something dark." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "Explain." Travis leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Monique was running away, not just from me, but also from the people we used to hang out with. Gangs, debt, drugs, everything. She tried to turn to the boy, but that kind of life doesn't just disappear. She told me you hit her." Travis didn't deny it. "Yeah, I did. I was high. I was stupid, and I lost everything because of it, but I never stopped watching. I knew Anna was mine. But when Monique disappeared in the suburbs, I started pretending she was someone else. I couldn't track her down. You've had years to try. I tried," Travis hissed. "But no one wants to listen to a criminal, especially when your mother is painting you as a monster." "I never had a chance." Marcus said nothing. Travis's tone changed. "There's a man named Victor Reyes. He used to race with us. Monique owed him money, lots of money. She left before things got any worse, but I wouldn't be surprised if he knew about Anna. Why does it matter now?" Travis leaned close to the glass, his gaze cold. "Because Reyes doesn't forget. If she told him Anna was his leverage, he would come." Marcus felt the weight in his chest return. "Are you saying she was threatened? I'm saying she was scared, and not of me." Marcus stared at him for a long moment. "Why tell me this? Because with all your money, all your lawyers, you don't know what's coming. And whether I like you or not, she's still my blood." Marcus hung up the phone and stood up. Blood means nothing if you never protected her. He turned and left, not waiting for a response. Back at the estate, Anna was on the porch building a snowman with Ruth, laughing as they gave him a crooked carrot nose and mismatched button eyes. Marcus watched for a moment. His heart was filled with protective warmth, but his mind was elsewhere now. Victor Reyes. It wasn't a name he recognized, but he would soon. He called Lawrence again. Investigate everything about Victor Reyes. Connections to Monique, gang ties, financial disputes. I need to know if he's real. Lawrence didn't hesitate. That's it. That night, while Anna slept and the snowman kept watch under the porch light, Marcus opened the green tin box again. This time, he dug deeper into old receipts, a church program from Monique's funeral, and a folded letter Anna had written in crayon. "Dear Mom, I miss you, but I feel safe now." Sure, but was she really? Marcus had built his world around that promise, that there, within those gates, she was untouchable. But if Travis were telling the truth, if Monique had fled from more than just a bad relationship, Maybe Marcus wouldn't have inherited a daughter. Maybe he'd inherited a target. He picked up the phone again, this time calling someone he hadn't spoken to in over a year. "Jacob, I need private security, discreet, background checks, surveillance. Are you expecting trouble?" "I'm expecting the past." The next morning, Marcus sat Anna down at the kitchen table for hot chocolate and banana muffins. "Do you remember your mother talking about someone named Victor?" he asked gently. Anna frowned. "I think so. A man from long ago. Mom didn't like him." "What did she say about him?" "She said he was mean. He used to come to the window. Once she cried after he left." Marcus's throat tightened. "Has he ever spoken to you?" "No, but I remember his eyes. They were dark, like empty." Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. "I promise. If that man comes near you, I'll be between you two. Always." Anna said nothing. She just nodded and leaned against his chest, small and warm and trusting. It wasn't just about courts anymore. It was about ghosts and doors closing that they didn't even know were open. But Marcus was ready, because no man, living or dead, blood or not, was going to take her away. 3 days after the visit to Travis, the results of Lawrence's investigation arrived in a thin manila envelope. Marcus sat alone in his office, the only light coming from the banker's lamp on his desk. Outside, the wind dragged skeletal branches against the window like ghostly fingers. He slowly broke the seal on the envelope, bracing himself. Victor Reyes. Real name, Victor Manuel Reyes. Age, 49. Known affiliate of the South Loop Syndicate in the late 90s. Multiple arrests, extortion, assault, never convicted. Known for operating clandestine loan schemes, targeting vulnerable women with no legal recourse. He disappeared from public record around 2012. He quietly resurfaced in Detroit under a new alias, Vincent Ray. At the end of the file was a grainy photo of Victor, thin and sharp-eyed, standing next to a black SUV. There was something predatory in his posture, something cold. Marcus had seen this kind of man before, in boardrooms with millionaire smiles that reached hearts full of rot, but Victor wore no mask. His face spoke the truth. He had nothing to lose. Marcus answered the phone. "Lawrence. This man is a live wire. I want to know who he talks to, what car he drives, which side of the bed he sleeps on." Lawrence sighed. "We're already keeping an eye on him in Detroit. No word yet on any movement toward Chicago." "But Marcus, I don't think he forgot. Neither have I." Marcus hung up and looked out the window. The snow had begun to fall again, silent and relentless. The next day, Anna came home from school with a drawing of a dragon. She smiled as she handed it to Marcus, who was waiting on the porch with a mug of hot cider. "This is you," she said. "You're the dragon." He smiled, taking in the large red wings and terrifying size. "I like it. You have fire," she said proudly, "so no one can hurt me." His throat tightened. That's right, no one will make it. But even as he held her, he felt that tremor in the air. A shift, as if something were watching beyond the trees. Subscribe to the channel and comment on what caught your attention. Now, let's move on. Later that evening, the estate's head of private security, Jacob Wyatt, arrived for a face-to-face meeting. Jacob was a lean, sharp-eyed ex-military man with a husky voice and the instincts of a hunting dog. Perimeter's clear. The cameras are live. His team has been briefed on the new access codes, and we have a rotating patrol at the gate 24/7, he reported. "Do you believe Victor is a threat?" Marcus asked. Jacob didn't hesitate. "Yes. He doesn't make any loud movements. He waits. He watches. And when he gets it right, it's clean and silent." "Any sign of contact?" Jacob picked up a tablet and slid it across the table. The night before, this man, one of Reyes's known associates, had been seen lurking 2 blocks from Anna's school. He didn't approach, but he lingered long enough to arouse suspicion. Marcus clenched his fists. "What do you want to do?" Jacob asked. "I get a man into her school. Someone invisible. If this guy blinks at her again, I want to know his grandmother's middle name." "Huh, you understand. And Jacob, yes, if necessary. I won't wait for the law." Jacob nodded grimly. "Understood." The following week, Marcus visited Mrs. Jenkins at the community center under the guise of donating art supplies. But as they stood in the storage room, surrounded by glitter and paintbrushes, his tone turned serious. "Do you remember Victor Reyes?" he asked softly. Mrs. Jenkins paled. "How do you know that name? He might be watching Anna." His voice deepened. "Monique was terrified of him. He lent her money when she was sick. He said it was a gift. But when she tried to leave, he started showing up at the clinic, leaving messages, threats. She never told the police. Why not? She was afraid he would hurt Anna. She said she'd rather disappear than let that man near her baby." Marcus swallowed hard. "Do you know if he contacted Anna directly?" Monique kept her hidden. She changed her address twice. She used a post office box for everything. That's why she never left a will. She didn't want any paper trail. Marcus left the center more convinced than ever. It wasn't just a loose end. It was unfinished business. And Anna was in the middle. 2 nights later, a strange car appeared outside the property. It didn't stop. It didn't turn into the driveway. It just slowed down. It kept going. And then it disappeared into the night. The next morning, Jacob handed Marcus a still from the camera, a silver sedan, tinted windows, out-of-state plates, not registered to anyone. It was a message. That same afternoon, Anna's school principal called. There was a man waiting near the south exit after the exit. Tall. Wearing a hooded sweatshirt, one of our assistants saw him watching the children. When we approached, he left without saying a word. Marcus arrived there within 15 minutes. He walked the grounds with the director and studied the security camera footage. And then he knelt beside Anna as she sat in the counselor's office. "Has anyone spoken to you today?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "Number. But I saw a man near the fence. He didn't smile." Marcus struggled to keep his expression calm. "You're safe," he said. "Let's keep it that way." That night, he met with Jacob again. "Time to step up the offensive," Marcus said. "Set up the perimeter, reinforce the staff, and I want all visitors within a 3-block radius to undergo facial recognition." Jacob nodded. "I'm going to triple the patrols." "I want to send a message," Marcus said quietly. "If they're watching us, they need to know we're watching back." That night, while Anna slept, Marcus stood alone in the snow-covered garden, staring at the trees beyond the gate. The cold pierced his skin, but he didn't move. He remembered something Travis had said behind the glass. "She's not just a little girl, she's a door." At the time, it seemed absurd. Now it seemed like a prophecy. Marcus whispered into the darkness, as if daring the shadows to answer. "Whatever you think you're coming to do, you've already lost." The wind howled in response, and somewhere beyond the trees, something watched, waiting. But so did he. The next day, Jacob took Marcus aside. "We got something else." A contact at the Chicago Police Department leaked a report. Reyes has been delivering money to a Latina woman in her early 40s known as Maribel. She's known for laundering money through frontline daycare centers. "May, what does this have to do with us?" "She worked at the same church Monique attended during her cancer treatment. My guess? She knew the family, maybe more." Marcus's mind raced. If Reyes was using people Monique trusted to watch her, he might be closer than we thought, closer to Anna. "Do you want us to arrest her?" Marcus hesitated. "Number? Not yet. Let's talk first." That night, Marcus and Jacob drove to a modest house in Little Village, with a sign out front, read Pequeños Milagros Daycare, Learning Center. Maribel opened the door cautiously. narrowing her eyes at the two men on her porch. "You're not here to enroll a child." "Are you?" Marcus stepped forward. "We need to talk." "It's about Victor Reyes." His face paled. "I don't know this man." "Don't lie," Jacob warned. Maribel looked around and quickly ushered them inside. "I haven't seen you in months," she whispered as soon as the door closed. "He used to show up, leave money, ask questions, always about Monique and then about the girl." "Why?" Marcus asked. "I don't know. He never told me. He just said he needed to keep an eye on things. To make sure the girl didn't disappear." "Did Monique know you were working with him?" Maribel shook her head. "If she had known, she would have killed me. She thought she was hiding Anna. She thought she had escaped." Marcus approached. "Then why help him?" Maribel said, her eyes filling with tears. "He threatened my grandson." Jacob's voice was hard. "Where is he now?" "I have no idea. But he called me last week. He said the time was coming. He said, 'The dragon cannot protect her forever.'" Marcus froze. The dragon, Anna's drawing. The nickname, it wasn't just a metaphor. Victor knew. Back at the estate, Marcus couldn't sleep. He paced the hallway, checking every lock, every window. He even stood at Anna's door, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest. The idea that someone like Victor could be near her filled him with such intense anger it frightened him. Downstairs, Jacob reviewed the new footage. Outside, guards patrolled in coordinated shifts. Spotlights illuminated the trees. Even so, Marcus sensed something approaching. Not just danger, history, and perhaps, in the shadows of Monique's past, something darker lurked, a secret that had yet to be revealed. Something Victor thought worth hunting. Marcus poured himself another drink and looked out at the snow. You wouldn't expect the wolf to strike again. Next time, he would face her at the gate with fire. 2 days after his encounter with Maribel, the temperature dropped dramatically. The wind from the lake blew hard against the Williams property, rattling shutters and bending the skeletal trees as if they were bowing to something more powerful. The air tasted of steel, cold, metallic, a warning. Inside the estate, Marcus met with Lawrence and Jacob in the war room. They had compiled maps, photos, reports, and live surveillance footage that now covered every available surface. But despite all the layers of planning and protection, something nagged at Marcus. "We're missing a piece," he said, his eyes fixed on the photo of Victor Reyes in the church. He didn't just want to watch. He was waiting. "Waiting for what?" Lawrence asked. Jacob crossed his arms. "A trigger, perhaps. Something to bring him out of the shadows." Marcus touched the image. "So maybe it's time we pull that trigger ourselves." Lawrence frowned. "What do you mean?" "Let's make it public that Anna is now under permanent legal guardianship. Let's issue a press release. Let's publish it in the newspapers. Let him see that his time is up." Jacob nodded slowly. "Force his hand." "But," Lawrence warned, "you better be prepared for what comes next." "I am," Marcus said. "This ends on our terms, not his." The next morning, the headline ran in the Chicago Tribune: "Billionaire Marcus Williams officially adopts the daughter of the late Monique West." Accompanied by a photograph of Marcus and Anna smiling in front of the property, it was more than a legal announcement. It was bait. Within hours, the calls started pouring in, some from supporters, some from reporters, and one from an unknown number was just a whisper. "You think you've won, but you don't even know what you're holding back." Click. The line went dead. Jacob traced the number he detected to a disposable cell tower in Gary, Indiana. "Reyes," Jacob said. "He's responding. That's a good sign." Marcus sighed. "Let's keep him reacting." That night, Marcus sat with Ruth in the living room. She was knitting a scarf. The needles clicked softly as he recounted everything: Maribel's confession, the surveillance, the threats. When he finished, she put her knitting aside. "You know," she said slowly. "There's something Monique once told me. It never made sense to me until now." "What's wrong?" she said. "If anything happens to me, don't let them find you." I thought she meant, "You know who Travis is." But maybe it wasn't just him. Marcus leaned forward. "Them," she never said names. But she once told me that Anna was more important than anyone imagined. I figured it was just motherly pride. But now she knew they were watching. Ruth nodded, and she was afraid of more than just being alone. Later that week, Lawrence's team had a revelation. A sealed court document dated 7 years earlier showed that Monique had been listed as a witness in a federal racketeering investigation. The target, Victor Reyes. She had agreed to testify. Then, days before the trial, she disappeared from the system. No explanation, no follow-up. The case was dismissed. Reyes walked free. She turned around, Lawrence said, sliding the papers across Marcus's desk. Then she disappeared. "May, she didn't disappear," Marcus said. "She ran." "And hid Anna." Lawrence nodded. "Which means Reyes has more reason than ever to go after her." Marcus stood up. His hands gripped the edge of the table. "She wasn't just leverage to him. She was a burden to him," Jacob said quietly. "So now we know what he wants, to erase her, to tie up loose ends." Marcus's voice hardened. "Then we made it impossible." That night, Marcus recorded a video in his office. No PR team, no script, just him, sitting in front of the camera, staring straight ahead. "My name is Marcus Williams," he began. "You may know me from headlines or business newspapers, but what you probably don't know is this. I'm a father, and my daughter's name is Anna. She's smart, kind, and full of courage, more than most men I've ever met. And now, someone is trying to delete it." He paused. "I want this message to be seen by one person in particular, Victor Reyes. You know what you did. You know why Monique ran. And I know who you are. You threatened her, and now you're threatening her daughter." He leaned forward. "If you think I'm afraid of you, you're wrong. If you think I'm going to give up on her, you're completely wrong. You've spent your life hiding behind the shadows, behind fear. But I'm not afraid of you, Reyes. I pity you." He ended the recording with one final sentence. "If you want to come, then come. But know this, you're walking toward the fire." He posted the video on all platforms. Within hours, it had been shared thousands of times, and Victor saw it. The next day, a car exploded 3 blocks from Anna's school. No injuries, no deaths, but it was close. Jacob stormed onto the property with fire in his eyes. That was a warning. "I know," Marcus said. "And now, this, too." He issued a new subpoena, filed that morning, naming Victor Reyes as a suspect in a federal case involving witness intimidation and child abuse. Lawrence had pulled the trigger. The feds were officially watching now, and they weren't alone. Later that night, as Marcus tucked Anna into bed, she looked up with wide, tired eyes. "Why are people so mean, Dad?" He paused. "Sometimes people get so used to living in the dark that they forget there's still light. And when they see someone as full of light as you, they get scared. Are you scared?" He smiled softly. "Never. Not when I have you." She took his hand. "So don't let go of me." I won't," he said. "Never." As he turned out the lights and entered the hallway, he didn't see the shadow watching him from the trees beyond the gate, but he felt it, and the fire in his chest. It wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a war. Chicago lay under a silent blanket of snow, thick and heavy, as if the city itself were holding its breath. The streets near the Williams estate were eerily empty. The intense cold acted as a natural barrier. But Marcus knew better. This stillness wasn't peace. It was the lull before the storm. At 3 a.m., Jacob burst into the office, adrenaline blazing on his face. They breached the perimeter. Marcus stood up so fast his chair fell over. Where? The west fence. 2 men dressed in black, unidentified. One had a silencer, the other a short-range decoder. My team disabled them before they reached the house, but they weren't amateurs. Alive, one detained, the other unconscious. No cell phones, no names, just cash and disposable equipment. Marcus's jaw tightened. He's getting worse. Jacob nodded seriously. This is no longer intimidation, it's an operation. By morning, the house was a fortress. Armed guards took turns. All entrances were double-locked. All windows were alarmed. Anna remained oblivious, at least superficially. But Marcus noticed the way she clutched her stuffed rabbit tighter at night. She didn't ask questions. But her silence spoke volumes. Later that day, Lawrence arrived with an unmarked briefcase. "You won't believe this," he said, showing a photo. "One of the men your team caught. He worked as a private security guard for a pharmaceutical company. Guess who was their legal representative 8 years ago?" Marcus didn't have to guess. Victor. Lawrence nodded. "Now we have a lead, not just rumors, employment records. Bank transfers. This man was on Reyes's payroll at a shell company. If we turn him in, we could take Reyes down." "What does he want with Anna?" Marcus asked again. "It can't just be revenge." Lawrence hesitated and placed a second document on the table. "We found a sealed juvenile case. Monique filed it under a pseudonym in Michigan shortly after Anna was born. She took a DNA test." Marcus narrowed his eyes. And, as his father mentioned, it wasn't Travis. There was a long, broken silence. "Victor?" Marcus asked. "No," Lawrence replied. "It was someone else entirely, but the lab technician who handled the case disappeared 6 months later. The records were sealed by court order, so Victor found out, but he didn't know the whole truth." Lawrence nodded. "Which means Anna isn't just leverage. She's a secret he can't afford to reveal. If the wrong people find out about her, Reyes will lose everything." Marcus felt a shiver run down his spine. "So, we don't just protect her, we protect the truth." At sunset, Jacob led Marcus to the estate's secure containment room, converted from an old wine cellar, now steel-reinforced and soundproofed. The man they'd captured on 42nd Avenue, lean, with a snake tattoo on his neck, was handcuffed to the center table. His eyes were calm, too calm. Marcus sat across from him. "What is your name?" The man didn't answer. "Who sent you?" Silence. Marcus bowed. "Listen, I'm not the police. I'm not interested in trials or lawyers, but I'm a father, and if you think I'm going to let anything happen to that girl, you've underestimated me." The man finally gave a wry smile. "You don't know what's in this house. So tell me, do you think this is about money? Reyes doesn't need money. He needs control, power. That girl is connected to a past he buried years ago. If she survives, he burns." Marcus's voice dropped. "So let it burn." The man's smile faded. "He'll never stop. Neither will I." That night, Marcus stood on the balcony of his room, overlooking the snow-covered backyard. Anna's window glowed softly over the courtyard. She was asleep, safe for now, but his every breath carried the weight of a deeper truth. There was more to Monique's past than he knew. He took the last item out of the tin box, something he hadn't looked at yet, a small cassette tape, labeled simply, "For Anna. If I go." Ruth helped him find an old cassette player in the basement. As the tape began to play, Monique's voice filled the room, soft, fragile, determined. "Anna, dear, if you're hearing this, I'm sorry. I wanted to be there on your first day of school, on your first heartbreak, on everything. But if this tape is playing, then I'm not. And that means someone is looking for you." Marcus sat up slowly, his hands shaking. "I once did something. I saw something I shouldn't have seen. And for a long time, I thought I could escape. But you can't surpass men like Victor. You can only slow them down. You're not his. You never were. You are something better, stronger. Don't let them tell you who you are. Marcus, if you're listening to this, thank you. Protect her. With everything you've got. The tape was turned off. Jacob, who was nearby, said nothing. He didn't need to. The atmosphere between them had changed. It wasn't just a fling anymore. It was a promise. The next morning, Marcus called a press conference. Not about Anna, not about the guardianship, but about the corruption that had buried Monique's case so many years ago. He stood on the steps of City Hall, flanked by Ruth, Lawrence, and Jacob. There are people in this city who have used fear as a bargaining chip, he began. They silence witnesses, snuff out lives, and walk free while good people run for cover. This ends now. I have proof. I have names. And I have a daughter who deserves a future. He held up a folder. This is the truth, and I'm not afraid to say it anymore. The crowd cheered, cameras clicked, but far away, in the quiet hallways of a Detroit mansion, Victor Reyes watched the broadcast on a private screen. He didn't blink. He just whispered, "So be it." Then he picked up his cell phone. The time had come. The blizzard arrived that night like an omen, dense, swift, and unapologetic. By nightfall, the city of Chicago was shrouded in white, and visibility around the Williams estate was reduced to just a few feet. But inside, the house was a completely different storm. The guards gathered. The cameras updated every 30 seconds. The windows had been reinforced, and all the gates were sealed. Marcus stood in the surveillance room next to Jacob, his eyes scanning the overlapping images. His jaw clenched as he spoke. He wouldn't wait any longer. That press conference had forced him to act. Jacob nodded. He's out of time. That makes him reckless. Or worse, Marcus muttered desperately, Just then, Lawrence came running in, snow still clinging to the shoulders of his coat. "We have to take a break," he said, pulling out a document. One of Reyes's former cleaning ladies came forward after seeing his speech. A woman named Charlene Dent. She used to handle logistics for his people, renting safe houses and hiding documents. "What did she say?" Marcus asked. Lawrence handed him a folder. Inside were grainy photos of a warehouse on the south side, abandoned on paper but actually bustling with activity. Arms deals, record laundering, even a private server hub. She said Reyes was keeping something there, something he never let anyone near. Blueprints, old case files, names. Charlene swears there's evidence linking him to Monique's disappearance and the dismissal of the original federal case. "We'll investigate tonight," Marcus said without hesitation. Jacob frowned. "In this storm, he's already moving. Either we cut off his head now, or he'll slip out of reach again." Jacob nodded curtly. "I'll call the team." Marcus kissed Anna's forehead as she slept, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. Ruth stood in the hallway, concern etched on her face. "You shouldn't go alone," she whispered. "I'm not," Marcus replied, "but I have to go." "She'll ask where you are tomorrow morning." Marcus paused. "Tell her the truth, that I came to protect her." Outside, black SUVs waited, their engines revving against the snow. Marcus climbed into the lead vehicle with Jacob and 2 armed security guards. They moved in a tight convoy through the blizzard, their headlights cutting a narrow tunnel through the storm. As they approached the warehouse, the street was empty, too empty. Jacob muttered, "Tss, this doesn't feel right." They parked 3 blocks away and continued on foot, the snow crunching under their boots. The warehouse looked like a dark cathedral, half buried under drifts. The loading dock door was ajar. Inside, everything was silent, too silent. They moved from room to room, no guards, no signs of recent movement, just stacks of crates, locked drawers, and old filing cabinets covered in dust. Then, in the server room, they found a safe. Built into the concrete wall, its keypad blinking red. Jacob got to work immediately. "Give me 2 minutes." Marcus stood guard near the door, his nerves on edge by the second. But just as Jacob cracked the safe, a voice echoed from the dark corner of the room. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Everyone froze. Victor Reyes stepped out of the shadows, wearing a black coat, his gloved hands empty, but with the erect posture of a coiled snake. Behind him, 2 more armed men appeared. Silent. "How long have you been waiting?" Marcus asked coldly. Victor smiled. "Long enough to see you make your move. You're brave, Williams. I'll give you that." "You're done," Marcus replied. "We have your files, witnesses. We know everything." Victor chuckled softly. "Do you think I kept something important in there? It's a decoy, Williams. A little safe for the night, just like this one." Jacob looked at the now open safe. Empty. "I don't need the files," Marcus said. "I have Anna." Victor's smile disappeared. "That girl doesn't belong to you." "She never belonged to you," Marcus retorted. Victor stepped forward, his voice low. "You have no idea what you're doing. That child, she's not just a threat to me. She's a threat to them." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Who are they?" Victor paused and said softly, "The same people who made Monique disappear. The same ones who protected me. She crossed the line. She had something she shouldn't have." "What?" Victor laughed, cold and empty. "You really think this is revenge? No, Williams. This is cleansing. You're just collateral." Without warning, gunfire erupted from the hallway. Jacob pushed Marcus to the ground as the bullets slammed into the server room wall. The security guards fired back, and chaos erupted in the warehouse. Marcus drew his gun and covered the left flank, his heart pounding as the storm outside howled like a second war. One of Victor's men fell. The other was injured, crawling. But Victor was gone. He disappeared into the maze of the warehouse. "Don't let him escape," Marcus shouted. Jacob and the guards fanned out, chasing shadows between crates and metal shelves. Marcus followed the trail of blood to the loading dock, where a side door stood open, snow pouring in. He stepped out just in time to see Victor staggering toward a black SUV, wounded but still moving. Marcus raised his gun. "Stop!" Victor turned slowly. His hands up. "You're not going to shoot," he said. "You're a father now." "Fathers don't kill in front of their daughters." Marcus tightened his grip. "No, but they protect them." Then he fired. The bullet hit Victor in the shoulder, knocking him to the ground. He screamed, dropping the gun as the guards surrounded him. Jacob arrived seconds later, out of breath. "We caught him." Marcus stood beside Victor, staring at the man who had haunted Monique's last years. "Who hunted Anna like prey?" "It's over," he said. Victor coughed, blood at the corner of his mouth. "Not for her. You'll see." They dragged him away in handcuffs. Marcus watched until the black SUV disappeared into the storm. Then he whispered to himself, "Yes, for her. It's over." But in the silence that followed, he wasn't sure he believed it. Not yet. Not completely. One last shadow still lingered, and whatever it was waiting. The storm passed at dawn, leaving behind a city shrouded in silence. Snow covered the rooftops, softening the chaos of the previous night, as if nature itself wanted to erase the violence. But inside the Williams estate, not all had calmed down. Marcus sat on the edge of Anna's bed, watching her sleep, his little hand still clutching his rabbit. But his brow was furrowed, his dreams clearly troubled. He hadn't told her what had happened. Not yet. But he knew the day would come when he would have to. Some truths, no matter how painful, needed to be conveyed not as burdens, but as shields. Behind him, Ruth entered silently with a mug of fresh coffee. "You didn't sleep again." Marcus shook his head. "I couldn't." Every time I close my eyes, I see his face, Reyes lying in the snow, bleeding and still smiling, as if he knew something I didn't. He knew, Ruth said softly. People like him always think they know how the story ends, that they're the authors, but you changed that. Marcus looked down. I don't know if I looked. Actually, no. He said it wasn't just about him, that there were others. There are always others, she replied. But that doesn't mean we stop fighting. Later that morning, Jacob arrived with news. Victor Reyes was officially in federal custody. His bail had been denied. The feds acted swiftly, raiding his known properties, seizing assets, and indicting low-level associates. Charges mounted for extortion, witness intimidation, attempted kidnapping, and conspiracy. But the biggest breakthrough came not from the recovered files, but from Victor himself. Did he speak? Marcus asked. Jacob nodded. In exchange for protection, he claimed to have documents implicating members of a shadow network linked to offshore companies, political donations, and private security firms. It's bigger than we thought. Marcus rubbed his temples. He was a cog, a loud, dangerous noise, but not the machine. Still, with his cooperation, the machine is exposed, Jacob said, and the Justice Department is taking action, silently but quickly, and Anna, she's safe. For now. Marcus looked out the window at the snow-covered garden where Anna had once tried to build a snowman. Safety isn't enough. I want her to be free. That afternoon, Lawrence arrived with a different kind of document. A thick envelope bearing the official seal of the state of Illinois. There you go, he said with a smile. The adoption is final, legally, permanently. You are now her father in every way permitted by law. Marcus took the papers with trembling hands. He wasn't a man prone to tears, but this time they came silently, just a gleam in his eyes as he repeated the words. Marcus James Williams, legal guardian and adoptive father of Anna Rose West. She's mine, he whispered. No, Ruth corrected gently, standing beside him. You're hers. That night, when the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in days, Marcus took Anna to the conservatory. It had been weeks since they'd been there together. Now the glass ceilings glistened with melting snow, and the flowers, somehow resilient to winter, were beginning to bloom again. Anna ran ahead, her laughter echoing off the walls. She twirled among the orchids, a tulip crown in her hair, hastily made by Ruth just before dinner. She looked brighter, lighter. The fear in her eyes had softened, replaced by something Marcus hadn't seen in a long time: peace. He sat on the stone bench where Monique used to read, and Anna sat beside him. Are the bad people gone? She asked. He hesitated. Some of them. Will they come back? He wasn't lying. Maybe. But if they come, we'll be ready. She nodded thoughtfully, then reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. What is this? He asked. It's a drawing. I made it for you. She unfolded it, a crayon sketch, crude but powerful. Marcus stood beside Anna, both holding swords, facing a dark form identified as Shadow. Behind them stood Monique, with angel wings, smiling. I appreciate you giving me a sword, Marcus said with a smile. You already have one, she replied confidently. It's here. She pointed to his chest, and in the blink of an eye, his heart opened. The final stage took place discreetly, without sirens or cameras. Lawrence scheduled a private meeting with the head of the federal task force overseeing Ray's case. They discussed contingencies, long-term protections, and Marcus's terms. He made it clear, if Anna's name or location were leaked, there would be consequences. She's not leverage, Marcus said firmly. She's a child, one who deserves to live, not hide. The agent nodded. We'll keep this a secret. And with that, the war ended. Or at least, the first one. Weeks passed. The snow melted. Spring came early that year, Anna started at a new school, small, reserved, surrounded by nature and kind teachers. She made friends. She played. She laughed louder every day. Marcus, for his part, stepped away from public life, sold several assets, and focused on building a foundation in Monique's name, dedicated to protecting vulnerable children, especially those in legal gray areas. He called it the Pink Fund. The first child to be helped was Anna. The second, a boy from Louisiana whose mother had disappeared under similar circumstances. The third, a girl from Detroit whose guardian was fighting for custody against powerful men. And so it was. Not just justice. Legacy. One night, months after everything had ended, Marcus sat in the garden with Anna on his lap. They watched fireflies dance in the twilight. She hummed something softly and wordlessly. "Dad," she said. "Yes." "Do you think Mom can see us now?" He looked up at the stars, shining faintly above them. "I can," he said. "I don't think she stopped." Anna rested her head on his chest. "So I think she was smiling." He didn't say anything. I just hugged her, tighter than ever. In the distance, the wind carried the sound of a songbird, the first of the season. A sign. That light, once buried under years of shadow, had finally returned home. And it wasn't going anywhere. Marcus and Anna's story teaches us that true family isn't defined by blood, but by love, courage, and the willingness to protect what's right. She reminds us that even in a world filled with darkness and injustice, one person's steadfastness can become a sanctuary for the vulnerable. Justice may be delayed, and evil may manifest in many forms, but with compassion, resilience, and truth, light will always find a way back. Above all, she teaches us that the greatest legacy we can leave is not power or wealth, but protection, dignity, and unconditional love. If you want to hear even more powerful stories, subscribe now. Comment your opinion on the story and share it with 5 people you love. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.